There's never been a more important time for Americans to be armed every single day, everywhere they go, than now. Whether it's concerns about narco-terrorism violence creeping up from the south, or lone wolf terrorists seeking revenge for America's actions in the Middle East, law-abiding citizens everywhere should be prepared to defend themselves and others at all times. Nationwide carry is not only our right, it's one of our founding fathers' original national security policies. That's why Senator Mike Lee of Utah just introduced the National Constitutional Carry Act, to ensure that Americans are always ready to defend themselves and their fellow countrymen. In today's episode, we'll be breaking down the bill and why it's important for the population to be armed and to defend against enemies, foreign and domestic. Hi, I'm Ben, and you're watching the Minuteman Moment. Before we get into the video, I wanted to take a second to talk to you about GEAR, Gun Empowerment and Adventure Recreation, GOA's first overlanding event. Come out to Maris Adventure Park in Texas, 8,000 acres of trails spread across the Palo Duro Canyon, the second largest canyon in the United States. GEAR brings together the firearm and overlanding community for 3 days of hands-on training, live fire experiences, trail runs, and family adventure. GEAR takes place April 24th to 26th in Claude, Texas. Be sure to register today at gear.gunowners.org to save your spot. Okay, now back to the video. Senator Lee is introducing a GOA-backed bill which will allow anyone who is eligible to own a firearm to carry that firearm and any magazine or ammunition in public, regardless of arbitrary state permitting restrictions. Now, this bill serves two critical purposes right now. First, it protects your natural right to keep and bear arms as protected by the Second Amendment. But also, in a time of war, our founding fathers recognized that the right to carry is essential to the security of our free state. During World War II, Admiral Yamamoto is said to have avoided an invasion of America because behind every blade of grass, there'd be a rifle. An armed American populace is a deterrent for criminals, foreign armies, and even our own government. The American gun owner is the equivalent to other countries' reserve police officers or paramilitary forces. In fact, most gun owners qualify as the unorganized militia under federal law and many state laws. Now, this mentality has been almost exclusively an American idea until recently. We can take a look at the war in Ukraine and see immediately after the invasion, they quickly dropped their gun control and armed their populations to resist the Russians. Armed populations are harder to control and subjugate. It's as simple as that. While the likelihood of a Russian invasion of the US is low, but never zero, there are still threats to public safety in our country. There's cartel violence from our southern neighbor Mexico that could easily spill across the border, potentially turning American streets into the same battlefields that the CGNG cartel have created in Guadalajara. The CGNG cartel are heavily armed and coordinated criminals that have ambushed Mexican forces while also targeting civilian locations. Mexican civilians are now at the mercy of the cartels since their police forces are currently engaged in massive operations throughout the area. Now with the bombings of Iran, there are risks of retaliatory terrorist attacks from supporters of Iran. The FBI and DHS have both issued warnings about lone wolf reprisal attacks. And unfortunately, it seems like one of those attacks has already been completed. A man who authorities have said has a nexus to terrorism opened fire on a bar in Texas early in March 1st. Now, Austin police responded in under a minute, an extremely fast response time by any metric. Yet tragically, people inside the bar still lost their lives as they were unable to defend themselves with their own firearms. Disarmed by Texas's prohibition on carrying if an establishment gets 51% of their profits from alcohol sales, that means even those patrons not enjoying a beer or cocktail were still automatically disarmed. So Texas's gun-free zone laws and other concealed carry restrictions disarmed Americans and got them killed by a terrorist on US soil. And while this attack happened at a bar, just a few months ago, a different attack happened in the streets of DC, where two National Guardsmen were attacked outside of a metro station. It's important to note that this attacker drove all the way across the country from Washington State to Washington, D.C. He crossed dozens of states, each time ignoring their concealed carry license requirements. And on top of that, when he got to D.C., bystanders coming out of the metro station would have been disarmed by the Washington Metro's prohibition on carrying on the metro. Again, Washington, D.C.'s gun-free zones and concealed carry restrictions disarm Americans and got an American killed on U.S. soil. In a time of war, where public safety is threatened not only by ordinary criminals, but also by bad actors working for foreign adversaries, being limited by arbitrary gun control is not only unconstitutional, but potentially life-threatening for Americans. That's why Gun Owners of America is proud to endorse Senator Mike Lee's National Constitutional Carry Act. No longer will anti-gun states be able to regulate what firearms, ammunition, or magazine-sized law-abiding Americans can carry. Here's Senator Lee's quote on the introduction of his bill. The founders established a national right to keep and bear arms, not to ask for permission from hostile local officials or risk imprisonment for crossing the wrong state line, said Senator Mike Lee. Many states already protect the right to carry without a permit, and it's time to reaffirm this right for all law-abiding Americans. The National Constitutional Carry Act will establish nationwide permitless carry to keep America safe and her people free. You heard that right. The National Constitutional Carry Act would make the entire country permitless carry. That means New York can say goodbye to their schemes of checking out people's social media, and DC can say sayonara to their 16 hours of in-person training requirements. It would also mean that people in New York, California, or Washington would now be freed from the tyrannical restrictions on their right to carry and what to carry. Senator Mike Lee's bill specifically protects the right to carry any firearm, ammo, and magazine. These crucial additions mean that the anti-gun states can't try and arbitrarily limit your right to carry in their state because your Glock isn't the right type of model or because you want to carry 20 rounds in a backup magazine. This bill also invalidates any state or local rule that would criminalize, penalize, or otherwise indirectly dissuade the carrying of a firearm, including by imposing a financial or other barrier to entry in public for law-abiding citizens. Almost all state-level gun-free zones would be superseded and eliminated by this bill. This bill also prevents states from enforcing the vampire rule when it comes to carrying, where everywhere is a gun-free zone unless they put up a guns welcome sign. Now, if private businesses want to ban carrying, it must be communicated clearly rather than just be assumed. Other than that, the only enforceable gun-free zones under the bill are where screening for firearms is conducted under state law, like a courthouse or a county jail. So that Texas bar would not have been a gun-free zone, and neither would the DC Metro. You have a natural right to bear arms for self-defense. It's essential to our national security. And so it's about time that the federal government started protecting that right. Senator Mike Lee's bill is just common sense. With 29 states protecting the right to carry without a permit, and the rising threat of public attacks by our enemies, returning to what the Founding Fathers intended with the Second Amendment is an absolute win for gun owners around the country. Now, thanks for watching. Be sure to like, comment, and subscribe to stay up to date with GOA's latest fights for your rights.